I'm talking about the family that you're going to have. Sometimes they're too involved.
So many times you guys are football coaches are filling that role.
I feel like that's what I should do. I have survived. The fact they got a smile on their face and the fact they want to share something that's been good.
So many, there's 19 million kids that'll go to bed tonight without a father in their home.
Just be real. Stand up there and be accounted. Every family will have somebody in drug addiction, alcohol. I mean, what family doesn't? And I tell our guys, I say, it's okay to cry. It's
There's
okay.
little things, and they remember every bit of it.
I try to text them every 2 weeks so during the season. But, has a ride really been that good a ride? And just let them know I'm always there for them.
Hey football fans, you're in for a treat with this one. I got to interview one of the nation's most prolific high school football coaches, Coach Courtney out of Knoxville, Tennessee, Farragut High School. If you're not familiar with Farragut, you're probably not from Tennessee. Farragut's a powerhouse high school program, numerous championships, and they regularly send players to the college ranks and to the NFL. Currently, I think he said he had 26 players in college and 2 in the NFL, and that's been going on for years. So Coach Courtney's been there for about a little over 40 years. But the thing that really impressed me is that he sees football coaching as a calling, and the things he does, aside from X's and O's, are just really what separates Farragut apart from many others. So I hope you'll enjoy hearing some of those stories. You're also going to hear about a coach who's had to overcome cancer twice now and his struggle as he went through that. So enjoy this interview with Eddie Courtney, one of the most impressive guys I've ever interviewed. Thanks.
Welcome to another episode of the That's My Dad podcast. Hey, we got a really special coach here. We're doing this series on football coaches, and some people may say, well, aren't you a fatherhood podcast? And yeah, the reason we decided to do football coaches is because to a lot of young men, their football coach is their father figure, and there's 19 million kids that'll go to bed tonight without a father in their home. And so many times you guys are football coaches are filling that role. So we want to do this little series, and I'm really thrilled to have Coach Eddie Courtney here from Knoxville, Tennessee. Long drive down to get into the studio. Thanks for coming in, Coach.
I want to. Anything about this game and about being a man, not a male, being a man, and just how God has placed me in a place. I've been blessed to be there so many years. I hadn't even added them up, but that's 40-something years, and be at the same place most of those years. And hopefully, I've had an impact on not on all these kids, but the community, trying to do things the right way and trying to look the whole picture of when, it's all said and done, these kids, what they think about you, and they come back in 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Some of them now 30 and 40 years away. I've coached some kids this year. I coached their granddads, believe it or not. So
really,
it's been a blessing, yeah.
Yeah, you do. One of the things you do that I was told about, and I've had you on my radar for a long time because you're a Tennessee Hall of Fame coach and just a number of accolades. The stadium's named after you where you're coaching. That's kind of unusual too. But you're at a large school in Knoxville, Tennessee, but you do something that's a little different, I think, and you were telling us about it before we came on air. At the end of the season, what is it that you do with your seniors that you were telling me?
Well, it's called an exit interview. What it is that we don't know. We're very, very blessed to be in the playoffs every year, so we don't know when that last game is going to be. And I know they're not prepared for it. I know I'm not prepared for it. So usually what I do, I'll go 3 days, usually Wednesday the next week, and all the seniors come in and bring their gear and all their stuff, and we'll have a meeting and talk and just sit down and be real relaxed about it. And then I'll set up interviews for each one of them the next couple of weeks. It's just to close out things, to let them know that I appreciate all their effort, what all they've done. Hope it's been a positive thing for them. I know there's a lot of ups and downs. You don't get to play as much as you want to play and all these things like that. But, has a ride really been that good a ride? And just let them know I'm always there for them. And so that's kind of the way it is. And you can talk to them a little bit and always try to point out something they've done in those last 3 or 4 years that I remember them by. And I'll ask them, these couple things. I said, I hope that you'll always revert back to us if you need us. We're here for you. Mm-hmm. One of the things I do also going into Scott is that I'll do a survey before each season. I'll ask the guys what's the most rewarding thing ever happened in your life. Just put that down. Remind me of that. And then what is one of the biggest thing in your life that you've had to overcome? Something that really maybe nobody knows. So sometimes I bring those in there and say, look, 2 years ago this was in your life and you've overcome that, man. I've tried to make it a positive thing there and do those things. And I feel like it does that from the standpoint we keep that communication. They really do. To add to that, and I do this because I think it's the right way to do. Any of my kids ever have surgery, whether it's in season, out of season, I'll be there either before they go in to have surgery or I'll be there when they come out. And one of the nurses at one local hospital said, Coach, of all the coaches in this area, I have never seen anybody, that, even if it's just a hand surgery or what, but you're here. When I said, well, we asked a lot of these guys. To put it on the line. And so I want them to know I really care about them, not just what they do on the football field or not what they really do in the classroom, but it's also overcoming that physical injury that you've had. And so I say that because I really do care about the kids, and I hope they will know that the rest of their life, that Coach Courtney did really care about me.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that have come up that they've talked about in that exit interview, as you call it?
Oh, there's things that sometimes I didn't know about, Coach, I don't think you really knew that this last year my mom and dad was really going through a hard divorce, and you didn't know that. And, you always was encouraging everybody what you talked about, all this other stuff. And things like, you don't know my dad lost a job, and so we had to move, and we've done that during football, and you didn't know that. Mm-hmm. Things I felt bad about, but at least they were open enough then to even tell me that. Some of them was like, Coach, I really appreciate it because I think you gave me every opportunity to play. Maybe I didn't develop like I thought, but you at least, either moved me a position or at least talked to me and encouraged me. So I still remember that day 3 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago that you said something to me coming off the practice field, that I thought that was a good practice for you, better one than what you had this year. And the little things like that you don't realize they do remember some of those things like that.
Yeah. So how many players do you have on a team typically?
Well, we'll have about 90 to 100 varsity players. That's seniors, juniors, and sophomores. So we'll have another class of 35 to 45 freshmen. So I've got 125, 130 kids every year, and then, just attrition, it just keeps rolling over.
How do you keep up with each of those kids? Has a story.
Well, my job has changed. I used to do a lot more X's and O's. I used to do a lot more play calling. I really do, and I've had to bring some of my players now. Some of our coaches now played for me, so I've turned those things over to them. I've got one guy takes care of grades for me. He lets me know what the grade situation is, so I can get those in here, and I got another guy that just kind of does a really good job in a weight room and let me know where the guys progress at and all that kind of stuff. But I need a full staff to do that, so I can be genuine, I can be honest, I can try to talk to them about things that helps me know them even more, or they also know me too.
What do you think football does for a kid and preparation?
It's one of the last things I think we have in society that we haven't compromised. Really do. The accountability, standing on your own 2 feet, knowing how to love somebody, knowing how to be accountable, knowing how to trust each other, knowing how to be tough, knowing how to be all those things. It's one of the last things we have. Really do, to teach those values.
Do you have a lot of kids there who are coming out of homes where the father's not active or not there at all? 2
different ways. I live in a very affluent area of Knoxville, but we have some of those guys that are just, their job takes them out of the home so much. They're gone all week long. Mm-hmm. And we have others who are going through changes in life themselves, and unfortunately there's divorces, and they separate that way. And so I see a lot more the parenting style, a lack of parenting style now is that number's growing. I still think the majority of our parents are good parents, try to do the right things, try to raise their kids right. But it's that loss of communication and care that these kids don't see at home anymore. I have a couple of sayings in my office I look at all the time, and one of them is, and I ask more parents, I say, don't prepare the path for the child, prepare the child for the path. Don't do everything for them. Now, either you're not in their life at all, so you're not helping them, or you're overprotective, and then all of a sudden they can't make decisions. I got some kids going through recruiting right now, and they can't answer those simple questions. I ask them about, how far do you want to go from home? What do you want to major in? And they're sitting there thinking, I don't know. I said, well, it's your life. It's time to make those decisions. Now, when I do talk to my kids about the family, because we talk about family, faith, and football, I say, I'm not talking about your current family. I'm talking about the family that you're going to have. There's a big difference. So don't use any excuses, or don't just think that you had it this way, it's going to roll over and be that way, because you're going to have things in your life that you might not be prepared for. We all go through those things. But as far as you understanding about, you've got to make decisions. What kind of father you're going to be, what kind of husband you're going to be, what kind of employee you're going to be, or are you going to be the boss, whatever. All these things you should learn in football just by teamwork and working together.
What kind of response do you get when you have that talk with the guys?
Well, I think what I've done is tried, and I've been very lucky that I've survived 7 principals, and they've all kind of let me trust me. You know what I mean? So I do have a time every Wednesday morning. I get our football team for 30 minutes before school. We don't have an athletic period, so I don't have all my kids at one time, and they're all not in the same class. But that's when we talk about these things. I call it BAM, Be a Man. A program I got from Coastal Carolina University probably about 8 or 9 years ago, and I've built on it. He gave me a platform to kind of look at. And again, what I do with these guys, we talk about all the things, are you a man or are you a male? Are you going to grow up? Are you always going to just be a male and not be a man? We talk about it all the time. And what kind of role model are you going to be? What kind of father are you going to be? What kind of husband are you going to be? What are you going to be? And I said, these are things that are important to be that. And so we talk about that, and we start from the root of those problems. And I said, so don't use excuses, or don't think that you've been in a perfect world, but it's going to be your world. Now, how are you going to lead that world? And we talk about those things about, these decisions are tough. How are you going to treat women? There's a lot of hate in the world. Are you going to continue to let this world dominate hate? Are you going to learn to love everybody for the right reasons?
So you're actually bringing them in and having an intentional conversation.
I do it as a team, with a team.
Is it a discussion back and forth?
I usually start it off with just a couple of statements there, like our slogan for the day or whatever the thought of the day is. And then we go through there, and then I'll kind of open up the floor and let the guys. And it takes a while for them to get comfortable to do that. It takes probably a good 2 or 3 months. Every year I do this, the guys start trust enough to kind of get involved in it. There's a leadership role that we talk about, that part, about how to be a leader and how to be on the front line. Like the other day, we used that example, and I said, today we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about what it really means to be a leader. And I went through 4 or 5 things that are very important to be a leader. And I said, now we're going to do this, soak this in. Now I want to see you on the front line with everything we do. All right, everybody get up out of your seat right now. We're going over to the lower gym. We're going to play dodgeball. Who's going to be on the front line? Who's going to be in the back line? So I try to make it something they got to react to, something real quick, and they see that the message is. So they went out there, they all sky high and everything, and I got the point based on leadership, how important it is, and they're telling everybody in the school what they did. The guys are on the front line, the guys back there hiding in the back line.
So what motivates you? You could just be doing X's and O's and winning championships, but you're doing a lot of extra stuff that you don't have to do.
I think it's a calling. I think it really does. I feel like that's what I should do. I have survived. I just turned 70 years old here last month, and I've survived it through all the things going on, because I think if you do it the right way, you try to challenge people to get better. You try to be a great example, a role model. You try to do those values and talk about them, and you live it that day. That I think that will carry you through. So when you get in that ball game and things are not going your way, that's where you're training. You'll respond to your training. So if we truly do care about each other, and we've pushed ourselves through, and we're going to do all this stuff, we can come through this.
You've set an example. You've battled cancer twice now.
I have, yes.
What was the reaction of your team when you went in and told them?
Well, it's a shock for anybody when you tell you got cancer. When you say the word cancer, you just don't know. I mean, it's a horrifying, it's a scary thing when you're told that. And this was kind of like 3 months out from football season, and they're telling me how many chemos I got to have and how many radiations I got to have, and I got the tears in my eye, because my first thought was, well, I'm not going to be able to coach football. That's football coach. In fact, this is how crazy it was. I first met with the oncologist, and I said, now we got these 18 chemos set up. I said, I'm trying to count now, and I said, can I get 2 of those the first week? And my oncologist, he looked at me and says, well, Coach, I'll tell you something. I've had 4 or 5 coaches I've dealt with. I said, I'm going to tell you the same thing. I know how tough you guys are. So he said, well, let's just do the one this first time, and then 2 weeks later we'll talk about doing a double or whatever you want to do. Well, I had no idea. I mean, but anyway, but my team, and I had several players on my team respond through the years about things that's to overcome them. I mean, they've had to overcome. And they've all reverted back to that same situation. Coach, we saw you sitting in a golf cart at practice. And every once in a while I had to lean up and throw up. But you had chemo treatment 2 days before. And we saw how tough you were and how you wasn't going to miss practice. Is that much to you? So when I've gone through this divorce, when I've gone through this losing his child, or when I've gone through these other things, some of these players have come back and said, I just remember how tough you were. And you were there for us. Wow. I want to be that same kind of example. They said, so that's why I believe that I've made it, is I've tried to do it the right way and be an example. It wasn't easy. No. It wasn't easy, but that's what it was. My father was a block mason, had his own construction company, but he was hard-nosed. But he's also deacon in Baptist church. So I got to both worlds. I got, tough love, and I got the love. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I learned that through him. You got to stand up. Whatever God gives you, you got to stand up and you got to challenge it. You got to, he's only going to give you so much that you can handle. So just know that. So that braining helped me a lot prepare myself through coaching. I really do. Thank you.
So do you guys come back? I mean, you have to keep up with a lot of guys. How do you do that, first of all, from a practical standpoint?
What's funny about it is my wife will be out places and she'll say, and some guy come up and we're talking. She says, who is that? And I said, well, and most of them I know. I really do. If I don't, what will come to my mind? Their number. Their jersey number will come to me. I go, 7. And then it's Bob Bobby, and that's how it does all these years, because you take 40 some odd years, 45, 46, 47, you take that many, and that's many players that you've been coaching. That's a lot of players.
Well, I can only imagine, though, that they come. That happens all the time. You have just people walk up to you all the time.
It does. And I can be out of town. I can be in other cities, and I'll see them. I've been in Atlanta one time, and a kid come right up to me on the street in Atlanta one time, and somebody had coached 10 years before. I mean, really.
Yeah, and then you have to remember, you see that number, and what do? You try to remember something about them?
Well, once that comes to me, then I'll remember something. I remember one time, like Bob Bobby one time, he's one of our best defensive linemen, and we were in the last minute of a ball game, and my defensive line coach wanted to get him out and talk to him about something. I said, get him back in the game. He's our best defensive lineman. Don't. That's what I remember about Bob, and he went out there and made a play 2 plays later. I remember one time we had a linebacker, a Wilson, and I'd set him on a blitz, and he jumped off sides. And this is, again, is a playoff game, and we could have lost the game, and he jumped off sides, and we'd call timeout, and I got him over there, and he said, Coach, I'm not going again. Don't ever send me a blitz again. Don't ever let me go again. And I said, yes, you're blitzing the next play. And my thing was trust, because I wouldn't have called the blitz. I didn't trust him to do that.
Yeah.
It's little things. We were in a state 8 overtimes, state of Tennessee, most overtime win. We won a game in 8 overtimes. Had my Mike linebacker signed, played Middle Tennessee State, and he's the toughest kid we had on our team. By the 6th overtime, he's crying. I said, calm down. What's the matter? Just we're going to lose, like that. And I remember that about him, and that's 20-something years ago. And so you remember something about every one of them. I had a running back one time that it was supposed to be the last play of the game. Thought it was going to go in overtime. We called a simple dive play, and he ran 80 yards and scored. Everybody thought he was going to take a knee. We're going to overtime. And for Michael Wright, that's a play I always remember him. But he just said, no, he gave it the ball and we'll score. So,
Wow. So it's those little things, and they remember every bit of it.
They will, but you'll remember them too. You really will.
Yeah. Do you have? I know you mentioned you had 27 players in college ball.
Currently now, that's the only. There's a place in our field house we keep all the current players that are playing right now. If they finish their playing and graduate, we move them over into the large team room. And I do keep those because those 27 kids are actively playing, so I try to text them every 2 weeks. So during the season, let them know, how's it going, and they'll text me back.
Wait a minute. Let me get this right. You have 27 former players that are currently playing college football.
Somewhere, D3 to D1. And I mean,
and you text them every 2 weeks?
About every 2 or 3 weeks. I'll text usually on Wednesday, just say, how's it going, and they'll let me know if they're injured or how it went last game or something like that. And I try to do that on Wednesdays.
That's incredible to me that you have, first of all, that you have the time to do that.
Well, on Wednesdays, I make that time. I make that time either during the lunchtime or during my playing period time, or just something I want to do that. I really do.
Yeah, and you currently have two players in the NFL.
I do. Very blessed to have Cole Strange playing for the Patriots and Nathan Gillum playing for the Bengals. So Two guys that.
That's pretty cool. Have you been doing that the whole time? You've been there 43 years, I think it was.
Close to it, yeah.
Have you been following up with your former players like that?
I try to as much as I can. When I was a younger coach, I didn't do a good job of that part. I was more worried about the X's and O's and watching so much more film. And, and with everything now, the huddle thing, I can do a lot more now on my phone or my computer and don't have to break down all the film as like I used to, The old days when I first started, I had a projector and put a sheet up on the wall, and I'd sit there and do it, spend all weekend. Or I'd spend all Christmas break making highlight tapes back then because that's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. So you do a lot of helping your kids promote themselves to advance on? I
really do. I tried. We talk. I give them a packet I put together, and it has about 16 questions about why you want to play college football, what's the match, and all that kind of stuff. And then they show me that they can do that, and then I say, I'll help you, but I got to see it on your end. I got to see the passion to play and the commitment to play. Don't ask me to write a letter for this school for you to do this, and then 2 weeks later you're going to come in here and say somebody else. I said, I can't do that. When I want to know if that's your place, then I will help that. The thing that's made it so hard now the last 2 years is with the NIL and the portal. That's more the high school kids not getting recruited like they used to. What I'm dealing with right now, a couple of kids are currently playing college football, and they're trying to go into portal. And I'm telling them, no, why? You sign there, you're committed there. Now, not unless it's just been a situation that's totally negative. Don't go out there in the portal right now because there's 4,000 some odd kids right now in the portal that have nowhere to go, and they're giving up scholarships. So unless it's just a coaching change or something, a philosophy change, don't leave there getting an education and get paid for.
So do your former players often come back to you and ask for advice?
They do.
Is it just football or is it life in general?
It's different things. I had two call me today or text me today on the way down here, just things about – because it's holidays. And usually the holidays between Thanksgiving and New Year's, more of them are in town, coming home to see relatives. That's usually when I see more of anything. Or late spring when kids are sometimes coming through town going on vacation. A lot of kids have moved away from Knoxville, So yeah, they know I'm always there at the field house, so it's no big. A lot of times I'll be there and knock on the door and it'll be somebody hadn't played for me in 10 or 15 years, but they're coming through town and going on vacation.
Tell me about if you've had to have a player or two who really surprised you, who you came along and maybe they weren't the most talented kids.
Almost every year at a place I'm like, you'll have a kid who loves football and might not have the size and might not have the ability to really excel. And we're a 6A school.
Some of them the biggest school.
Yeah. Some of them probably better off going to single A or double A school because there wouldn't be as much competition. But almost every year you'll have one. We had a kid this year that just finally got on every special teams almost, and he's 5'6", corner, defensive back. Well, the people we play are 6 foot and taller, so he's out there 3 or 4 plays, and the opposition is going to spot him real quick, and they're going to start throwing. And that kid there just had a heart of gold. He loved football probably as much as anybody we had on our football team. But luckily, he got to play a couple of games and got some time in out there, and it's a very encouraging thing for him. And now he's in the weight room every day since our season's been over. He comes in there and sees me every day, and he goes right over there and starts doing his workout.
Wow. So you honor his loyalty and hard work and trying to find a place.
And I'm trying to find a place for him right now. My things and I told him, I said, the thing I can tell you, you have a great heart and you love this game, and you're basically injured free. So you're going to be a kid coming to college. Someone will let you give you a chance. You don't have any medical history of something that's, you've been pretty healthy and played hard.
So what do you enjoy most about seeing you guys grow up? When you see them out in the community, what really gets your motor going?
The fact they got a smile on their face and the fact they want to share something that's been good for them. Whether it's promotion, I'm now doing this, or I'm running this company, or I've got 3 kids now, and my son's now playing sports and all that kind of stuff. And just hearing those stories,
What do you tell them when you do those Wednesday morning meetings or when you do your exit interview? What do you tell them about fatherhood?
Well, I tell them I was very blessed to have a father who I knew loved me. It was hard love and tough. That's where I start. And my father would always say this when I was growing up, and I'd be getting ready to go out on a date. Sometimes I didn't know if I'd have the car with the keys till he told me, all right, but you'll be back at 11 or you'll be back at 11:30. But he'd always say this, remember the family name. What that means is, to me, he'd say, now, if you do this, your mother's going to be, If you do that, you're going to embarrass your mother. You're going to embarrass me. But also your grandparents and your uncles and your sisters and everybody. He'd always say that. That's all I need to hear. Now, I was like anybody else. I'd do stuff, mischievous stuff like that. But that was always in the back of my mind. That maybe I need to leave now. Maybe I need to get home now. Maybe because I knew my dad's going to be waiting on me when I get home. And I better not have done something to, ruin the family name.
So your dad would say, just remember the family name.
That's all he had to say.
You got any other memories of your dad you'd like to share? Was it a story or something?
He had his own construction company. Of course, like I said, the biggest influence, because he'd make me work with him sometime on summers. That was hard. I mean, he was going to make me work harder than anybody else that worked for him. But I had the biggest thing, one of the things, how hard he worked and then how he carried himself at a construction site. And here's what I mean by that. I had a lot of guys say, well, I'm not going to say a cuss word near your dad. If I see him coming, your dad is just, your dad. First of all, he'd call me out on it.
Mm-hmm.
He said, there's no need for that. Well, whatever it is. So just being in that environment and seeing the weight he carried to others. And then he was a very giving guy himself. He was on the benevolence committee at church. He'd always give a lot and spend a lot of time visiting others, whether it's in the hospital or whatever do. He just felt like that was something, a God-given ability trait that he had, and he would do that. So he'd work hard all day long in construction. He'd come in, take a shower, and get dressed and go visit others in the hospital or whatever you're going to do. He's just that kind of guy. But I also know if you messed up, he's going to bust your tail for it. I remember I did something. I was junior in high school, and the coach had already paddled me 3 times that day, and I deserved it. And then when I got home, I was going to get it by the belt, but he always said, now, this is you got to understand, we don't do that. But he said, I love you, and that's the reason I'm doing this. And so that's just kind of the father I had. Very blessed to have a guy that gave me tough love, but gave me love, and also I knew was there. And I valued everything that I got because I knew the sacrifice. The first time he made me work with him, I was in the 7th grade, and he made me carry bricks and make mortar all day long. He said, I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to pay you until the day's over, and I'll pay you when I value on what you did. So I learned that. In fact, I carried that over into football. I'm not rambling, but in our weight room, we have an old time clock. And every year I tell the team, you know what this is? Most of the time they don't unless they played there the year before.
Yeah.
I said, this is the time clock. Here's a time card. This is blue collar. You take this when you come into work, you punch that in, and put the time on there, and you go put it over there. And when you get through, you come over here and punch it in. So we'll do that first week or two in the weight room. So kids understand. Now, if you're just messing around over in the weight room and you're not doing your program we got set up for you, I'll tell you to go over there and clock out. So they see firsthand that you're only going to get what you put into something. And I got that kind of from my father is that you only get paid. If those days it rained and you couldn't work construction, no, you didn't get paid for that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some mistakes that dads in particular make with their sons?
Lack of talking to them. And I tell our guys, I say, it's okay to cry. It's okay when you're emotionally spent or something's really not, let it out, talk to them. But I think it's because you don't listen to them or you don't want to really sit down and have those hard conversations.
What about in terms of football? We're in a day and time where there's camps there's just way more than it was when we were growing up. Is that too much or is it? It is.
I tell our guys, there's got to be a reason for you doing it. There's 2 types of camp. There's evaluation camps. If you really think that you're good enough to play at a certain school, then you go to their camp and show them you can. But you got to remember, everybody else there is for the same reason. So you better be the best. The other kind of camp is where you specialize if you're a quarterback, but you can only afford to go to a couple of them. And what is the camp ratio? You don't want to go and it's 1 to 50. You want to find a camp that's got a staff in there and usually, are they trying to charge you a lot of money for just the name, or are they actually trying to make you a better athlete, a better quarterback? So that's the talk I have to them. Now, before you sign up to a camp, make sure that you're going to get what you want out of that camp. I know they mean well, but at the same time, are you going to get what you need? Now, if you're not ready to go, don't you go to the camp because you're not going to sell your best. If you're doing that, you're wasting your time. That's the way it is.
Better not show up than to show up halfway.
Yeah. I always tell our kids, now listen, don't be the first guy in every line. Be the second, third, or fourth guy in line. So you get to see the first guy do the drill. So you understand. They're looking at coaching. They're looking at seeing if you know what to do. Wear something with Farragut on it so they understand unless they give you a number, you wear something because They want to know the program you're from because, believe me, if you really shine out in this program, they'll call me. They want to know what's the story on this guy. And I said, that you got to do that. You got to sell your part on it. But before I can back you up, I got to know that you're there for the right reason. You're going to give your best.
Yeah. How did it come about that the stadium was named after you?
That I don't know. Serious. I'll be honest with you. I don't look at those things. But one night we were getting ready to do the officials admin meeting before, and then the team goes in and I come in and they held me out there and they said, we got a dedication tonight. I said, what? They said, we're going to name the stadium after you tonight. And I said, oh. So, that's just the way it is.
You literally found out.
That's how they told. They kept that secret. And, of course, after that, they pulled out a banner thing and like that. But that's how I found out, yeah.
Yeah, you seem to be the kind of guy, we called early on and we were just thrilled that you were going to make it down here. And we said, can you let us talk to some of your former players and get a tribute and that kind of thing? And you were like, why? So you're not the kind of guy that's just looking for accolades and recognition.
I'm really not. And there's a lot there. I'll be honest. I've got it in a room. My wife's kept all this stuff, and I just one day, but I'll never be able to take those to heaven with me. But
that's right.
But it's in there. So one of these days, whenever I decide to retire, I'll probably go in there and walk and look at something like this and balls that have been signed and things like that. But
yeah,
I think if I do that, I'll get off what my purpose is.
Yeah,
I want to be. A lot of the coaches that I've learned, I've mentored that are younger coaches now, they've asked me, how have you made it this long? And I said, well, there's several things, but I try to be the same guy after a game, win or lose. Oh, I hurt. If I lose, I hurt. But I'm going to shake your hand or hug you or whatever and tell you, great game, y'all played great tonight, and you out-coached me tonight or whatever it is, and then walk on, Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be a guy that hi-hat somebody and just all this kind of stuff, say a bunch of bull because I won that night. I'm just going to be the same way. If we win, I'm going to shake your hand and say, great game tonight. I thought y'all played well. We played well. We just have to make a few more plays than y'all did, but, good luck next week.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to carry myself being consistent with that.
But you're just not motivated by accolades. I think it bothers you. You don't keep up with wins. You've had over 200 wins, I think, when I read.
Yeah. I
bet the losses, you remember a few of those, though.
I do. I remember some that we've lost that we should have won. You remember those that, for whatever reason. And those are things that, and especially key games and playoff games, that, man, you're just that far away. 2 plays and then you're moving on to the semis, or you're moving on to the finals, or you're moving on or those kind of things. Like I said earlier, we have one school in our district, our conference, and it's been called conference and district and region and all that. It's Maryville High School, and they've won about 17 state championships, and we've always had to play them regular season and turn around and play them 2 to 3 weeks later in the playoffs. And this year we beat them by 3. We kicked the field goal with 2 seconds to go. But there are a lot of those games that were just really hurt because, this team was good enough to be in the championship this year. We just couldn't get through them or through whatever the situation is. And I've learned that also. When I was a younger coach, I felt like more is better. What I mean by that is sometimes I would keep the kids out there another 30, 45 minutes for some big games. It probably shouldn't have done that because they were tired. They were thinking too much, instead of just playing the way we should play. And I learned that from being an older coach now that I look back at some of those games and say, man, I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have,
Yeah. And speaking of time, how have you balanced coaching with being a father?
Well, I'm lucky because my wife was the longest tenured nurse at Children's Hospital. She just retired recently. So we started dating. Actually, we knew each other in high school, but just didn't even want. But I was coaching at UT, and she was in nursing school. And so going into it, we knew what our careers were. She's working every other weekend. She's working third shift. She's working every other holiday. So our first probably 12, 15 years of marriage, she was working and I was working. So we learned how to let each other have and let them do their career and balance the family. Now, the coach's wife will tell you there's a lot of raising the kids when you do that. And she sacrificed that through the season. Luckily, my son, played football. And our hardest discussion we ever had was when he was a freshman. I told him, you're not going to be the quarterback. And he could have been a good quarterback. But I said, Jeff, here's the deal. Do you want to play? Do you want to have fun playing? or do you want a lot of pressure on you? Because the place we're at, you're going to have a lot of pressure. You're going to have as much pressure as I'll have on me. He didn't like it at first. But he ended up being a pretty good football player, playing defensive back and receiver, and enjoyed it. In fact, he's my offensive coordinator now, and I did everything to keep him from getting into coaching. The sad thing about it all, and I didn't know this till about 5, 6, 7 years ago, my daughter is 34 now, I believe, and we were talking, and I was talking about, oh, man, how great it was and all that. She looked at me and says, no, it wasn't, Dad. I said, Megan, what do you mean? She said, Dad, you never realized that being a daughter of the head football coach in high school, and the guys wouldn't ask you out or whatever and all that kind of stuff. She said, that was tough. And I said, well, Megan, I'd always come in, and here's where I learned, and I give a lot of advice to a lot of coaches today. I tell them this story. I said, if you have a daughter, a lot of these younger coaches said, because you better make sure you spend time with them. Because my daughter would always say, no, it's okay. I'd come in and say, Megan, you want to go do that? No, it's okay. Well, she'd see how tired I was, or she knew all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't know it until a few years ago that was not a good time. And I thought we were tight. I mean, I was taking her to church when she was 2 and 3 and 4 year old when her mother was working every other Sunday. So I thought growing up I was doing the fatherly thing, the dad thing, and really taking care of the kids. But when it come to my daughter, I was not there for her like I should have been. And Jeff was always hanging out in the coach's office and the ball boy and doing that stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And Megan was doing her other things too. Her girl things were doing her things, but I was never there like I thought I was. So that's my advice I would give any coach today, man. Especially if you got daughters, make the time. They might tell you it's okay or no, I don't know. They're just trying to see, and you just got to be persistent and do it.
Mm. Yeah. What other kind of advice would you have for coaches starting out? Well,
make sure you know you're in it for the right reason. It's not an easy thing to do it for the right reason. I mean, are you in it to help these kids? Or are you in here to just draw X's and O's all day long and try to discover what the next big play is? Mm-hmm. Because it's going to be the kids, and if they'll be the first one. If you're a phony, they'll see that. And the worst thing in the world is go through a losing season or going through 3 or 4 games in a row where it's tough, and then nobody starts believing in you, and you just, so you better find out, are you in it? Are you in it to do everything? Not just on Friday nights. Are you here to just mentor these guys? Are you here to mow the field? Are you here to wash the uniforms? Are you here? It's a full package of things to do.
What would you say to, and maybe you can just look into one of these cameras, what would you like to say to your players, former players, current players, about being a father and the importance of that?
Well, they've heard me say this a lot. Just be real. Stand up there and be accounted. I mean, be there for your wife and be there for your kids. Be a positive leader. Encourage them and let them know that you're there to love them no matter what. We go through a lot of things. Every family will go through cancer. Every family will have somebody in drug addiction, alcohol. I mean, what family doesn't, whatever you come from. And I said, you've got to be there for the full thing. Like I told you earlier, I tell these guys that what is your family going to be? Not your current family, but what is your family going to be? And that's the thing I hope my guys understand when I say that statement. They understand it, the family they're building. So hopefully they had a good example in front of them. They know how to get to this. But if not, how are they going to make this the best it can be?
What do you say to the kid, though, that comes up and it's not the best family in the world? He doesn't have that role model. Is there something you say directly to him?
I tell them that we all have, God has given us all things that's hard somewhere. It might be a disease. It might be a bad family situation. But that's just life. And you got to know who you can count on, and you got to know where you get your strength from, and you got to make up your mind you're going to get up off the floor and you're going to make the best of the circumstance you've been dealt, the cards you've been dealt. And I want those guys to understand there's a way to do that. And coaches, we're still here for you. Your coaches will still here be for you for whatever. Just call on us. Mm. And that's probably the hard is the trust factor. Sometimes when a kid comes in our program, they don't understand that trust part. Sometimes I had a kid transfer in. He said, I really think the other coaches, all they cared about was winning on Friday nights, coach. They didn't really care. I mean, there were times I probably shouldn't have played. I was hurt. And I'm lucky. I've been doing this a long time. I have 2 orthopedic doctors on my sideline. Both of them played for me. I have a dentist on my sideline. So if any of those guys come to me today and said, no, he's out. I don't question it, and I'm not going to ask a kid. I mean, it's not worth that. Even though no matter what's at stake on the line as far as the playoffs or anything, I'm not going to. No, I don't go there. When I was a younger coach, I was probably foolish sometimes, and I would go out and check on a kid when he gets hurt, and I'll look down, look at our trainers, and I might tap him on the shoulder and something like that, and I walk off because I have had kids who, man, coach, I don't want him to say I'm hurt. I don't want to hurt. So I won't stay out there very long unless it's a real serious injury, just for that reason, because I want them to make sure that they need to be honest with the doctors and make sure they need to get off the field right now. They get them to the hospital while they need, not just because they're trying to be tough, show toughness.
Yeah, so this might be a strange question, but there's coaches out there who've had to deal with losing players who've died.
I'm lucky. I am lucky, knock on wood, that's not happening to me. I have friends who have, and it's changed them. It really has changed everything about them. Now, the closest I ever had, and I'll tell you this story real quick, we had a spring game. We're lucky in Tennessee. We can have a spring game, blue and gray. We have a big game. And so we were over the spring game, and I was going up to the field house, and a couple of kids come right out to me and said, hey, Doug's fell out in the showers in there. So I hurried on up there, and I said, what's going on? He was our long snapper in the scrimmage. No licks at all, no contact at all. And I was getting real concerned. I called our trainer and we looked and said, well, let's get him to the hospital. I don't know, trying to ask around where this could happen. I hadn't had a chance to even go but look at the film to see if so. So I get to the hospital, and when I will get there, immediately I walk in, and they said they've transported him downtown to the trauma center. And I said, what? I said, yeah, serious head injury. And I said, no contact is even involved in this. Well, long story short, what had happened was I walk in there, and, of course, the family was there, and they're looking at me like I'm the Grim Reaper myself. I mean, they just, what have you done to my son? I mean, that's the way I felt. And we found out, luckily, after 6 hours surgery, the surgeon came in there and said he had a tumor, had nothing with any contact. This had triggered tonight. And it probably was a blessing that it triggered when it did, because we were able to get to it at a stage. So then it come to me being, it's okay, Coach. It's okay. You know what I mean? And we were all hugging each other. But that's the closest I ever come. I thought, gosh, what has happened through all this? For that 6-7 hours, I'm sitting there thinking, man, is this worth it? A kid might lose his life tonight or something over something. And there's no even contact even involved in my knowledge. I don't know what happened.
Have you ever had a kid lose a parent while they were?
Oh, I did. I had a kid one time. Well, yeah. And they came to me at halftime. One of the family members came to me and wanted me to tell him after the game.
They came to you at halftime?
They came to me to tell me because that was a father's wish that his son would not know it until after the game.
Wow.
And that was tough because immediately after the game, I went to him and hugged him, and he kind of sensed something.
Yeah.
And I told him that, your dad has passed away. And he passed away tonight during your game. Yeah.
Those are the harder moments of that. That's when
they are. They are. They really are.
That's when football doesn't matter near as much as we think it does.
It doesn't at all. No, it doesn't. But you hope you've done things to prepare them. I've had to do, I don't know how many funerals of former players.
Really?
Those are hard. And when they've been tragic car wrecks or drug overdose or something like that in life, and you have to do those. Those are tough. But I feel like that if I hadn't prepared my team through the years of talking to them about things like that, if I'd been one of those coaches and never talked to my team about life and about decisions and about making the right choices and hopefully spiritually you've made wherever your parents have brought denominationally, whatever they've done, I had to be open about that, It's up to them to bring you up the way they feel. But what is your faith in God and where's that? If I hadn't said those things, man, the times I've had to stand up and address our football team and the community about a funeral of one of our players. I had to do it a coach one night. I had a coach that just out of nowhere was put in the hospital. Next thing I know, he's in intensive care, and I went and visited with him every night I could. This went on for about 2 weeks, and finally he'd gotten better. In fact, they'd moved him to another hospital because his care had gotten so much better. And I'll never forget, it was a Thursday night, and I went, and he was actually sitting against the counter there in the hospital room and looking out the window. We were talking. He was standing up, and first time I'd seen him because he'd been, sedated and everything else up to, and he's having a great night. He said, "Man, I'm going to try to be there tomorrow night." And I said, "No, you're not going to be there tomorrow. Maybe next game you'll be back and all that." And then they called me at 3:00 in the morning and said he passed away.
That night.
And I first thought I was dreaming. And my wife punched me and said, "Who were you talking to?" And I said, "What?" She said, "You've been talking to somebody on your cell phone." And I said, "So it must have been true." And she said, "Yeah, you were talking to somebody." So I got up, got dressed, went to the hospital. Of course, it already passed on. He'd already passed away when his wife had called me. And so I said, well, so I had to call the whole team in the next morning. I said, "Guys, Coach Shoup has passed on." And we all thought he was making it, but do you guys want to play tonight or not? Because we had a decision to make, and they all said, yeah. They said, "Coach would probably want to play this game tonight." His wife agreed and everything like that. That was tough. That was pretty tough.
Do you have any former players that you think of as guys that have been real overcomers, that have really done well, had to overcome some tough stuff?
Oh, many of them. Gosh, I've been blessed. I mean, I had a kid one time who father had passed away before season started, and the mom really couldn't handle it and had to end up being in treatment. And he was living in the house. The lights and stuff got cut off, the power. I didn't know that. He kept that hid. And to see him go through that season, and I didn't know it. I mean, none of our coaches, we thought everything was going well. We kept trying to stay talking to him, and then to see him, the next year go to college, get a degree, do well, and he had nothing. I mean, he had nothing. And we tried to get everybody involved to help him scholarship-wise and help him with monthly bills and stuff like that. Yeah, a kid like that. I mean, really that, who really overcome a lot of hardship. And he didn't, and there for a while he wouldn't talk about it. In fact, when his father passed away, he had kept that so quiet for 4 or 5 days. It still came to practice and still knew something a little bit, but I didn't know it to that extent. But he wouldn't. His position coach myself, he wouldn't open up to us. I mean, he would not.
So his dad died, and he kept coming to practice.
Didn't
tell anybody.
But just the fact that everything we've tried to do, what we stand for, can you not talk to us?
Yeah.
He finally did, but I mean that showed it.
What do you think football? Where do you think he would have been without football and without that support?
Oh, he'd have been in trouble. He'd have been in trouble a lot. It gave him just his frustration to get in the weight room and throwing weights around and then getting out on the football field. And, he was a kind of a physical kind of guy, you know what I mean? And he was not very big, but he's a kid that had a physical presence around when he did things, yeah.
How do you handle discipline when you have kids that get out of line a little bit?
Well, I have a list of things. I have 3 rules. Do what's right, do the best you can, and treat others like you want to be treated. I said, everything falls in that, guys. I don't care what's said. I'm not going to sit here, you don't smoke cigarettes. You don't. I said, because it's spelled out there. Now, if you don't understand it, you're going to find out right quick that's not right. So we have a thing. First of all, we have a conference with your coach. He's going to decide whether it might be like some playing time, whether you're going to do what we call Trail of Tears. They don't want to do that. That's
I can only imagine.
Cross on there. And then we have a thing of Burma Road. We have a couple of things that they don't want to do. You know what I mean? And that's why we get someone's attention. We have a thing where our offensive linemen do worms and they crawl on their belly for 100 yards all the way down the field. There are things that they don't want to do. But, we're standing right there with them. And usually I'm right there walking with them with a water bottle, so I know if anyone needs to be squirted on the back of the neck or something. I mean, I'm not going to. But at least I'm out there with them, not doing the worms, but I'm doing But it's stuff like that we all look back on and when we played. I'll tell you this funny story. I was getting ready to have some surgery done on my jaw. And right before the surgeon puts me under, he says, "Oh, gosh, you're Coach Courtney. I'm scared of you." And I'm looking at the guy and said, "You're getting ready to go in my mouth and do this. What are you scared of me for? I'll be scared of you." He said he named a certain coach in the area. He said, "I played for this guy. This guy was like me. In fact, he just retired 2 years ago, old school guy." He said, "Well, that was my high school coach." And he said, I was late one day to 2-a-day practices. I'd overslept. So when I got there, the coach stopped practice, made all the players get in a big circle. I said, "Oh, we're going to do bull in the ring." I said, "Oh, no." They had to do 100 up-downs while I stood in the middle and watched.
Oh.
He said, to this day, since that, I'm never late anywhere. He said, sometimes my wife and I go in 2 cars. He said, because I always remember Coach Meskey and just stand there making me watch all my teammates. He said, whenever we get together or something for whatever, those players, that's the first thing my buddies call. Yeah, I had to do those 100 up-downs because you were late to practice.
Yeah, he'll never forget that.
No.
They'll never let him.
I think going through cancer and being there every day, and I wanted to be there because gosh, it just made you so sick. But I wanted to be where what made me happy, and that was football. And I think just seeing how my players rallied around that. Really, most of them will tell you today that's something that's been impactful on them, was just how we went through a season, and I missed probably 2 days. I've had cancer twice. And a couple of years ago, I had to go to the press box because I just got out of the hospital. And my wife had insisted that I don't go. And the doctors, knowing all on the sideline, they all played for him, basically. So they thought, well, he'll be all right if we get him in the press box. So we'll just get him up there. But I think a lot of that's been a blessing, because I think all the things I've talked to about being committed to each other, being loyal, and being there for each other, it probably showed those guys that Coach really means what he says. I mean, he didn't have to be here tonight. He's probably not supposed to be here tonight. I got to announce it at the banquet. In fact, I was told the morning of our banquet, I met with an oncologist, and he said, "You're cancer-free." So I was about as emotional as I am right now. Just, man, when you hear that, what you've been through. And so I went in, and we're getting ready to introduce people like that. And so I just told them, I said, "Guys, y'all been praying, and I've been praying, but I just want you to know I'm cancer-free." I found that out this morning. So that was, I mean, that's tough. When you get the word cancer told to you, and here's a story. I mean, when I was diagnosed, I thought I was having a heart attack. And they took me to the hospital, and they came in, they said, "No, your heart and everything is fine, but we're going to run some more tests." And they come back in about an hour or two later, and they said, "No, we found a tumor. You've got cancer in your chest." Well, I just got up out of the chair. I was sitting there, and and you know what? I look out the office there. There's a professional building office where I went to see the doctor from the hospital, right across the thing. You know, I look out across there, and there I played football there across the street. And I looked down there, and you know who I saw? I saw my football coach walking on the track. So that's all I needed. All the things he had said to me, the influence he had on me. So I'm going to be okay. When they say that to you the first time, I don't care who you are, how tough you are, whatever. When my father passed away, this is another thing you were asking about. I was leaving a treatment. I was driving across town, and I got there at the hospital. I get off the elevator, and my brother-in-law standing there and said, "You need to come to the room right now." I said, "Okay, I'll be there." Well, I looked, and there's 2 kids that I used to coach coming down the hall, and they were crying. And I stopped. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Dad just found out he's got cancer. He's right down the hall. He told us to get out of the room. Don't want to talk to anybody." "Coach, will you go down there and talk to him?" I went in there, and he was one of the most prominent attorneys in Knoxville. I mean, powerful guy. And I was just coming out of last part of my treatments. And I went down there, my brother, I said, "You need to come to the room right now." I said, "Just a minute." So I went down and I talked to him a few minutes. And I mean, and I'd been there. I know when they first tell you that nothing else matters. You just start thinking all the bad things. So I been over and talked to him a few minutes. So I had prayer with him like that. And, he wasn't a very religious guy, but I told you I'm going to be praying for you because you're going to need some strength going through this. But you can do this. And so when I walked out of the room, I stayed down home, and I told my brother, I said, "Now I'll be there." And he said, "Well, your father just passed away." I said, wow. You didn't get there. It's okay. The rest of the family was there, but you didn't get there. It's okay.
But you didn't get there because you had gone to comfort the father of some of your players.
Correct.
Wow. That's a love of a coach that I don't think I've heard too much.
Well, that's just who I was brought up, and through that time, I've understood that's probably what he'd want me to do.
If you had your dad today, how long has he been gone?
Well, that's 14 years ago now.
Well, yeah. Well, if you could go and say something to your dad, what would you say to him?
Oh, I love him. Just thank you for the way he brought me up, and he's always there for me. All the years I played sport, he never told me I did bad, I did good. He just said, I was proud of you, and just never came to a practice. Never remember my dad ever being in a practice. That wasn't his part to be there. Really. Your coach is going to coach you. I'm going to be your dad. Just whatever. Yeah.
Just tell him thank you, Daddy.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. You pass that legacy on to your son.
Well, I've tried to be that kind of example. He's got to be himself, you know what I mean? But I think he sees – I told you, you got to be yourself, Jeff. You can't be me. When you run this program, it's going to have to be you. You got to, hopefully the things you'll see that's important, the most important things about doing this and surviving is that's what it is. Yeah.
Wow. Well, it's no wonder they told me you were a legendary coach in Tennessee, and all these. I've got just pages and pages of Sports Hall of Fame and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Hall of Fame, and one of the newspaper articles I read, though, the thing that stuck out to me is that they ask you who your role models were, and the first one you said was your dad.
Yeah,
that really stuck out to me. And then you named some other coaches. Any of those guys you want to acknowledge?
High school, Bob Black, he just passed away last year. He was my high school coach, and that's probably one of the reasons I got into coaching because he was such an influence in the community and us players. He was hard-nosed. Oh, my gosh, he'd grab you in the face mask and kick you in the tail. But you know he always loved you. And he's a guy that kind of encouraged me to go get a college education, play football. You're not the best football player, but I think you're good enough to play and do that. And then and I've had other coaches that Bill Mitchell was a coach for mine in college, a linebacker coach. In fact, I saw him a few years ago. He said, these guys today, they can't take it. He said, I wonder if you'd even look me in the face the way I used to coach you guys because they're so hard-nosed. And those guys, Ken Sparks was a big influence. Ken was, like I said, he was a Christian that happened to be a football coach. He's a pretty good football coach. I don't know how many national championships he won at Carson Newman and did it the right way and lived at the right example. He was always a good influence. Dal Shealy was, Bill Battle. I mean, I'll go through a list of a lot of guys. There's only a few guys that I really regretted being around or didn't think they really cared about what, they're just more in for their own wrong reasons. But I've been blessed being around a lot of good role models and guys that were good coaches, and plus they knew what was important.
Mm-hmm. Good. Wow, that's some good information that we covered a lot of territory. Anything else on your mind?
No, I just appreciate you can see how I'm emotional because it is me. I'm not going to hide things. You've asked me questions. I've tried to be honest and transparent with you. I really believe if you do it the right way, you put your heart in it and you do those things, the wins will come. I've told people the wins will come. Now, it's not easy. I mean, sometimes you play people who a lot better than you.
Mm-hmm.
We squeaked out some. I mean, we squeak out games because we're trying to be the most disciplined team and the hardest nosed team, play hard for each other. But I just been blessed. I mean, I can't, like I said, I told you earlier, I can't tell you the number of wins and championships, all those things. One day I'll figure them out. All the reason I know about the current players because they're on that. When I walk down the hall, and that's why I try to stay connected with them. But just being blessed to be in a great place and hopefully influence a bunch of guys the right way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming down.
Oh, I enjoyed this.
I know it's a long
trip down here.
Long trip, and you're working. You got a lot of people to take care of.
So that's all right. I really enjoyed the trip down here and learned a lot about around this area too. Jerry Mullen took me around the school areas around here, and I got to watch one of the teams practice today. It's still in the playoffs, and that's what I'm about. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that concludes our interview with Coach Eddie Courtney from Farragut High School in Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you so much for coming down. A lot of good information for guys that are out there coaching. You've been around a while.
I have.
And a lot of people can listen and learn from you, so I hope they will. That'll conclude this episode of the That's My Dad podcast, where we're inspiring fathers to become great dads, and we're seeking to break cycles of generational fatherlessness. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Coach Courtney. I just want to thank you for not only being a great coach, but a great mentor and helping guide me become the best man I can be on the field and off the field. I carry your life lessons and teachings with me throughout my whole life. And I just want to thank you again for being such an inspiration to me, my brother, and everyone in my family. Thank you, Coach Courtney, for all that you do.
Just wanted to say thank you to Coach Courtney for everything you've done for me. Not only made me a better player, but also a better person. And he's truly one of the best coaches of all time.
Coach Courtney, this is Nick Revez. Just wanted to tell you how much you've impacted my life as a player when I played for you, but even more importantly as a coach, because it's just like disciple making to me. It's the multiplication factor because of how much longer you can coach. And from when I was a freshman to when I was a senior, and then even when I got done playing, was really struggling with, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Coach Courtney, you sat down with me at Sam and Andy's, and we had lunch, and you talked to me about coaching. And from there, I got to coach with Coach Sparks, who you had a connection with and helped me with. And now it's, to be honest with you, it's kind of vaulted me into a life calling of coaching, and not just coaching football and doing that for excellence in the X's and O's part, which we all want to do, but more importantly, of impacting eternally. And that's what you did for me, Coach. So I love you and appreciate you. I'm thankful for you in your life.
Well, it's hard to believe one man can change a program, a town, or even team as much as Coach Courtney has. His pursuit of excellence was relentless, and his attention to detail was peerless. Personally, Coach taught me how to persevere through tough or confusing times. He also taught me how to become a good man to my peers and loved ones. During my junior year, which was our 2020 football season, we were dealing with the COVID pandemic, which we thought as players we weren't even going to have a full season or play a season. But he taught us not to run through adversity, but to attack it. And we did, and he stood by us and believed in us throughout it all. With Coach Courtney, there's plenty of hardware to go with it, but it wasn't about the hardware with Coach. He was after the relationships, the growth, the standard, and the love he had for the game. I know I can say this for all the players he coached and edified. Thank you, Coach, for the life lessons you taught us and the love, blood, sweat, and tears you put into us to become the men we are today. Thank you, Coach.
What does Coach Courtney mean to me? He means a lot to me. I can remember a time that would help me get recruited to get the coaching level because I was at a junior college called Lewisburg College. Great school, it was fantastic, everything, but when I walked on to play football there, I felt like the coach would help me get recruited, which I understood. But I went back to ask Coach Courtney if he could help me out with that. And he definitely helped me. I mean, he was one of the biggest reasons why I got into Carson Newman. I graduated from there in fall of 2011. I mean, he's always been there for me. I mean, currently right now what I do, and I'm a head coach for the Central Basketball boys program. I mean, he was a big influence on me in getting that job. And who I am now today, I mean, if it wasn't for my 4 years being at Farragut and playing football, I mean, I want to be where I'm at today. And I just want to say I'm thankful for it. Being under him and learning from him as a player and as a coach. Coach Courtney, congratulations. 50 years is amazing. I think that you are a staple in this community for high school football and just what it means to be a good leader. I'm a good man, someone that people trust and look up to. But I really appreciate you for the impact you've had on me and my career, my journey. You're humble, so you'll say that, it wasn't you, it was all God involved me, but you've had a great impact on me and my life. Just my support system in general, for these last 6 years at Tennessee, but also, dating back, I guess, 11, 12 years now ever since we met and kind of started this journey. So I just appreciate you for the man that you are, showing all of us how to handle adversity. We all know you've been through all of it. So I appreciate you for the example you set, and look forward to watching you in the future. Congratulations on 50 years, Coach. Bye.